Hi everyone, welcome to a new chess video. In this video, we're going to look at a super aggressive trap that's going to get you really great results in your games, because most of your opponents are going to fall for it. This trap happens when we play d4 and your opponent responds with d5. As you can see, these two moves are extremely popular. So, we'll be able to use this trap in tons of situations. How does this trap start, chess teacher? Well, on the second move, we give away the most important pawn we have in our position. Chess teacher, have you lost your mind? Like I always say, yes, I've lost my mind, but this works. So, here, what happens if we give away the most important pawn in our chess game? What happens if they capture it? Well, here, we're going to make a series of moves to leave your opponent with absolutely no chances at all. Previously, people considered playing f3 here, but that wasn't really practical since your opponent wasn't forced to capture. They could counterattack with e5, and it didn't seem like the best option. So, new lines have been developed with better options, and that's why I'm making this totally awesome video. So, what are we going to do here first? We'll develop our knight to c3, directly attacking this pawn. If they want to keep that extra pawn, they'll have to defend it. It's important not just to memorize the moves, as I always tell you, but to understand why we make each move. That's why these videos are so great, because we can learn so much from each one of them. The most common thing here is for them to defend it with knight to f6, since they don't want to lose that pawn, and they can defend it with a completely normal development. And now it's our turn, and now it's time to play f3. Now it works, fast 3. Usually they'll capture, and I'll explain why. If they don't capture, we're going to take that pawn ourselves, and we'll be in a much better position with a strong pawn center, plus we'll have recovered the pawn we were down. So here they have to capture, and now they're left with an extra pawn, waiting for us to recapture with the knight and continue developing, with a pawn up for them. But what we're actually going to do is recapture that pawn with the queen. Now we're starting to create some rather subtle threats, but our opponent has to be very alert because our queen is already starting to attack. Let's take a moment to assess the situation. This pawn is now completely hanging. They can take it, and I'll tell you something else. They actually have to take it, because if they don't, we'll just be down a pawn. We'll defend it with bishop to e3, and our position will be much better since we'll control the center. If they do manage to capture this pawn, which is actually what black should do, they'll have a two-pawn advantage, and it seems like that more than justifies their position. It's true that we have open lines for our bishops, but our opponent has two extra pawns. Here it looks like we're in a much worse position, but that's actually far from the truth. Here they're falling right into our territory. We're going to play bishop to e3, just like we mentioned before, attacking the queen, which now has to retreat. Since this queen is in the center of the board, we can choose, well, you know that gambits sacrifice pawns to gain initiative and attack. In fact, here we've given up two pawns and we're gaining a ton of initiative by attacking the queen, which now has to retreat, and let's see where it can go. A very logical and dangerous idea for black here is to place the queen on b4. Why? Because it's attacking this point, which doesn't seem easy to defend, and besides, it can always retreat again. So here, and in the future when the bishop comes here, it seems like a very safe square. So let's first consider this option, queen to b4, and how we deal with it. The first thing you need to know is we're going to castle, which seems like a huge blunder, and now I'm going to explain why. Surely, many of you already see why it looks like a huge blunder. Yes, it defends this pawn here, but there's a really good move, which we'll see in a moment, from black. First, let's quickly evaluate the position. Our king is safe, while the black king still needs a few moves before it can castle. Now we can develop both of our bishops, whereas our opponent can only develop one, and their queen is very exposed. But here, as you can see, black has the move, I'm not sure if you've spotted it, bishop to g4, which looks super strong. They're attacking our queen and our rook. It's a totally spectacular pin that seems impossible to escape from. But here we have a completely unexpected move, which is knight to b5, sacrificing the queen. Here, our opponent will probably think we've lost our minds because we're giving away the queen, but that's far from the truth. If they capture the queen, thanks to the castled rook, we can jump with the knight to c7 and deliver a spectacular checkmate, since the rook would cut off the king. So this queen can't be captured. They have to try to give this king a way out, an escape route. Here, the most common move is e5, to give the king an escape upwards. It might not seem like the best move, but let's analyze how we finish if they play e5, since that's the most popular move at this point. There's an absolutely amazing move here, and I challenge you to pause the video and see if you can find it, because it's a really tough one to spot. I'll tell you right now, I'll give you a hint. The first move is to check with the knight, and since this file is covered, the king has no choice but to move here. How can we continue? This is the star move. Let's see if you can find it. Pause the video for a moment. All right, now I'm going to tell you what the truly incredible move was. Queen takes pawn, sacrificing the queen. It's almost impossible to find this move, but if you did, you're a genius. What's the reason for distracting this queen? We're luring this queen away, giving up our own queen. The reason is to bring in the bishop now and deliver a brutal checkmate. The queen from here was defending the square, but now she isn't anymore. We deliver a brutal checkmate since this knight covers these two squares. It would be a truly spectacular mate. You're blown away by this aggressive line, aren't you? Well, let's keep looking at more variations, because it's amazing. And now comes the best part. First, as you know, we sacrifice the most important pawn in the position. At this point, our opponent is probably thinking either we're really bad or we've lost our minds. So let's keep going with this line. Remember, not f3, but knight to c3. And oh, don't forget, okay? It's more important to understand the position and why we make each move so you can apply it in your own games rather than just memorizing the moves. Although if you do memorize them, you can also literally replicate what we're doing here. Knight to f6, now defending that extra pawn they have, and now we will play f3. They have to exchange, because if they don't, they'll end up in a much worse position, and instead of capturing with the knight, we'll capture with the queen to create multiple threats. We've said that this pawn has to be taken, because otherwise they'll be left in a much worse position. We continue with bishop to e3, attacking a queen that has to move, and let's keep watching what happens when they come here, because there are more options. You remember, right? When they attack us here, we have to castle, letting them pin our queen with the rook, which seems really scary, but we don't need to worry, because this is a mistake, and I'm showing you how to punish it. Let's see. Here, we're threatening this knight jump, like we said before, and we saw that playing e5 was a mistake because we could checkmate by sacrificing the queen. But a lot of you might say, hey, chess teacher, you don't have to play e5 to stop this checkmate. I can play knight to c6 and directly defend this square, and you can't do anything to me. Well, actually, I can. Here, it's important to capture this pawn. We're going to capture the pawn next to it, attacking the knight, and especially attacking the rook to deliver checkmate. And now here, they might play this move, attacking our queen and with a skewer the knight. So we couldn't take because they'd capture our knight and they'd also be attacking our rook. But even so, here we have a truly brilliant move. We have a checkmate in 2 moves. Come on, I challenge you to find it. Pause the video and see if you can figure it out. All right, now I'll give you the solution. The amazing solution is queen takes rook. We sacrifice the queen to distract the knight's defense, and when they capture our queen, now we jump in with the knight. Checkmate. Because the rook, as always, thanks to the long castle, is defending this entire rank. So we just captured here, okay? We just captured here. We've seen that rook to b8 doesn't solve anything at all, since we can sacrifice the queen to distract the defense and deliver a brutal checkmate. So we have to look at different solutions for black, and it seems like a really good one is to place the queen here, trying to trade queens, which would give black the advantage, and also defend this rook here with an X-ray defense. Before continuing with this spectacular variation, I have to thank you all. The channel's doing better than ever after the rough patch that, well, YouTube put us through. Thanks to all of you. So if you keep supporting, like always, I'll be grateful forever. A like, a comment, subscribing, everything helps me out. That's how we keep growing every day. Thank you all so much. All right, so how should we play if they defend with the queen over here? It looks pretty tricky. Well, the right move is to take the knight with the queen. Why? Because we're removing the direct defense, and now we're actually threatening checkmate. So black has to respond. They can respond in several ways. The most logical is to take the bishop with the queen because that also puts us in check and forces us to move. Now, if we pin ourselves with the rook, that wouldn't go well for us because this rook would basically be out of play since they could bring their rook over. Extreme pins, not quite yet, but it would be dangerous for us, all right? Here, we would just need to calmly move the king. And it's true that now they could take our rook or do a lot of other things. For example, let's see what happens if they take our rook. If they don't take it anyway, watch out, okay? Don't get the wrong idea in the chat. If they don't take it, nah, seriously now. If they don't take that rook, we're still winning. But if they do take it, even better, because we're going to play the queen over here, give a check. If the king moves, we'll bring the queen in, we can come in through here, and if they block, it's the same, we take the rook, check. And now this is completely lost for them because they have to give up the knight. Let's go ahead and take it. This position is totally won. So let's set up the critical position. I'm going to go through this part a little quickly because we've already seen it many times. If it's not clear, you can rewind a bit on the board and take another look. F3, E takes F3, Queen takes F3, Queen takes D4, and now Bishop to E3 attacking this queen. We're back to the critical position where we were studying what happens if the queen comes over here. But what happens if the queen comes over here to try to trade queens, which seems like it could get us into a lot of trouble? Well, to see this, we're going to look at a real game between two very strong players, whose names I honestly can't remember right now. I was looking it up earlier, but I just can't recall. And this is really important because we're going to see it in an actual game. Later on, you'll be playing real games against real people. So we need to see how people actually play. And it's really important to understand these moves. Once the queen attacks us, we don't want to trade, since in a gambit, as you know, we shouldn't be giving away too many pieces. If we trade queens, we lose a lot of our attacking chances. So we'll calmly move the queen back to the f2 square and continue the game as black. Here, as always, black tried to exchange pieces. Since our queen and knight are under attack, we have to trade. So the pieces were exchanged, and now this point is under attack. Here, white castled. So we're following a pretty similar plan. Here, black played a 6, a bit passive, to try to prevent this check here, which seems like a good move. And here, white played knight to f3. Why did they play knight to f3? Well, knight to f3 is a really strong threat right now because they're threatening to jump with the knight, attack the queen, and also, with the discovered attack, target this point here, taking advantage of the open file. So black played f6 here without hesitation to prevent these extremely dangerous knight jumps. There was a really interesting move here, which was to bring the rook over, threatening the queen in the center of the board, and at the same time developing our rook, then the bishop, and then doubling up the rooks. But in the game, bishop to e3 was played. Also a good move, threatening the queen, which had to retreat. And in fact, it moved back to square a4. Why? To attack this spot right here. Here, the white pieces played a move that was way too passive, which was a3, but they actually had a move that I'm about to show you, absolutely spectacular. They had this move here to bring the queen in, trying to break through at this point. And the king here, almost completely exposed, wouldn't be able to do much of anything. So they'd have to block this path with the most logical move, e5. And here, there's a truly spectacular checkmate in 5 moves, which is almost impossible to spot. If you want, you can pause the video, but it's really hard to see. And now I'm going to show it to you. We sacrificed the bishop right here. Watching these videos with a coffee or something, honestly, even I end up watching them myself. Let's get back to it. I'm getting sidetracked. So we sacrifice the bishop. When they capture, we come in with the queen, check, and the king has to move. Now we bring in the bishop, check, and the king has to move again. And now we finish it off with this absolutely brutal checkmate with the knight, since it can't be captured because of the pin from the queen. This isn't what happened in the game, but it could have, and it would have been amazing. I wanted to show you because it was just so beautiful. So let's go back to the game, where 3 was played and things were set up a bit better and a bit more safely, probably because they hadn't seen this combination. So let's keep going with the game because honestly, it was also wonderful. Like I said, here e3 was played and black continued with the knight over here. There were several development moves, like first placing the queen here on the same diagonal as the rook, developing the bishop, and bringing the other rook to the center, also focusing on this point here. The pieces had been positioned in such a way that they wanted to launch a brutal attack on the enemy king, who quickly castled to avoid staying here in the center, which seemed extremely dangerous. How'd the game continue? Well, what the white pieces did was pull the bishop back a little, and black did the same, to clear the way for this e5 pawn and to be able to develop their other bishop. So here, white has arranged their pieces in a way to break through this long castle, starting with this move here, delivering a brutal check to the king. Now, there are two ways to continue, moving the king or playing the move d6. Oh, e6, sorry. Two very logical moves, but both end up exactly the same. In the game, e6 was played, so let's see how white continued to break through this position, because it's really beautiful. If you want, pause the video as always, and this is the last exercise I'll leave you with. You can try to solve this one yourself. Here we go! White played rook takes pawn, sacrificing the queen and sacrificing the rook, and you'll see it's spectacular. First, what happens if they take our queen? If they take our queen, we simply bring the rook all the way down, double check. They can't take the rook, and the king can't move away because it's a double check, and the king can't go anywhere. So if they take our queen, it's checkmate on the next move. Sorry, this goes here. There it is. Let's also see what happens if they take the rook, which is what happened in the game. Well, they simply took the bishop, check. This king has to move aside. And now, yes, we sacrifice the queen for the rook. And when they take our queen, and when they do, rook takes knight, checkmate. This gives us a totally brutal lesson that this opening, this aggressive trap, is very powerful. And if you're an attacking player, you're really going to enjoy putting it into practice. Yes, if you want, you can try it out yourself. I hope you loved this video. I had a great time, as always, with you all. Tomorrow, I'll be reading all your comments, just like I always do with the daily video. You already know that a like gives me a ton of motivation to keep uploading daily videos, and the same goes for a subscription if you enjoy this channel. And most importantly, guys, turn on the channel's notification bell, because that way, every time I upload a new video, YouTube will let you know and send you a notification. So I hope you love this wonderful video, that you save it, share it, and I'll see you in the next one, guys. Bye.